This is more Doug DeMuro, and today I am going to take you on a garage tour. Although not exactly, because I have only a two-car garage, which a lot of you have asked about. You've asked, you have all these cars now, where are you storing them? And so I'm going to cover that today. I'm going to explain what my car storage situation is, and also I'm going to tell you what cars I currently own, because I've bought a few cars this year, I've sold a few cars this year. It can be a little bit difficult to follow if you don't watch all of my videos, so I figured I'd make it a little bit easier and explain which ones I have now and also how I use them, what I'm using each car for, and how often I'm using it. I'm also going to cover where I'm keeping the car since so many of you asked, so let's get started. Okay, so first thing I want to address. I recently announced the purchase of this car, my 1994 Audi Rs2, which I just love so much. I'm so excited about it. I announced this last week, and you know, the number one thing that people were saying was like, congratulations on it, so cool, I love the Rs2. The number two thing people were saying was, where do you keep all these cars? Because I recently did a video on this More Doug channel where I gave you a tour of my garage, and it's only a two-car garage. It's a very simple, reasonable, normal garage. And so a lot of people are wondering, what do you do now that you have several more vehicles? So the answer is I have rented some storage space. There's a business here in San Diego called Veloce Motors, the Vault, that does car storage. And I have rented 2 spots there. And so I keep 2 of my cars in there, and then I keep 2 more in my garage. Now, I want to be clear, they're not just sitting in there. I'm switching them out basically every week. I'll call them up and say, hey, I'm coming down. You know, by the time I get there, they will be ready. The car will be ready to go. And then I'll just kind of hand over, for instance, the Rs2, pick up the Ford GT. Then next week I call, hey, you know, I want to get the Land Rover, drop off the GT, pick up the Land Rover. And so that's how it goes. And so I have 2 fun cars at my house at all times. And then I have 2 more cars there, basically, in storage that are kind of constantly always rotating. So which cars are at my house right now depends on just my mood that week, what I decided to go and pick up. Now, obviously, this isn't really the optimal solution for any car enthusiast. You want to have like a big 6-car garage at your house so you can drive your vehicles at any time. But there's a couple issues with that. Number one, I think I would fall victim to induced demand. In other words, if I had a 6-car garage, I think I would buy 6 and then be like, that 7th car seems really appealing, that 8th car, and then I'd find myself right back in this situation again. Also, I know there are a lot of car YouTubers who are building massive houses with massive garages, but to do that, you have to go really far out, and it's just not the way I live. I've always lived in cities. I've never lived in a suburb. It's just the way lifestyle that I choose, and I would rather choose that lifestyle than have all of my cars sitting in some sprawling thing. And also, you know, in terms of spending money, allocating resources, that may be a little bit more conservative than some of my YouTube colleagues who get crazier cars and do crazier things than I do. It's just not really for me. So I'm not going to be building a 7-car garage in some massive 10-bedroom house that I'll take you on a tour of. I'm sorry. Instead, you get quirky, weird cars and a 2-car garage, and that's just sort of my lifestyle. But anyway, that's the situation. Only 2 cars in my garage, 2 cars somewhere else. I will say one benefit of having the cars somewhere else is when I bring the cars here, whatever car was gone the last couple weeks, I end up focusing my efforts on driving it more. So I'm actually driving the Ford GT more than I was before when it was always here, because now, you know, when it is here, it's only for a week at a time, and I gotta drive it, I gotta drive it. And so I'm actually using the car more because I'm putting more effort into, you know, driving it before it goes back and it's gone for a couple weeks. So there is one little benefit, although it would be nice to have all the cars together, no question. And that is especially true now that I have gotten quite a few cars. So let's discuss all the vehicles that I have right now. There are 6. It's really kind of getting out of control. There are 6 cars, 2-car garage. I'm going to talk about them basically in order of use, the one I use the most to the one I use the least. And that means we have to start with my Mercedes G500 Cabriolet. This is the car that I use the absolute most. I just made a video here on my More Doug channel about why I love this car so much, why I will never sell it. So I'll link that in the description below. But the basic gist is it's just so usable. I can take it on road trips and it's a comfortable car. I can take it, you know, top down and it's a fun open car. I can go off-roading and it's exciting and cool. It's reliable, good engine. It keeps up with traffic, which isn't always true of kind of older cars. It's just great. It works for everything I need it for. I love it. And so I'm driving that the most. I will never sell it. It is my #1 car by far. Next up, the #2 car that I'm driving, probably the second most, is my new Land Rover Defender. This is a 2020 Defender. I just bought it. I announced it probably a month or two ago, and this is my daily driver car. Now, I don't have a commute, obviously, for my job making YouTube videos, but I do drive all over Southern California and even beyond, sometimes into Arizona or Las Vegas to film videos. And so this is the car that I use when I'm doing that. So if I'm going, to Los Angeles, that's about 3 hours away, I will take my new Defender. As opposed to one of the fun cars, the new Defender has all the latest tech, it's more comfortable, it's safer, and so that's the car that I use on those kind of trips, and that's what I use that for. Although, I will say, I just took the new Defender off-roading the other day with my wife, and it was fantastic off-roading. Even though I consider it kind of a daily driver, it was wonderful, and I'm gonna do a video in maybe a month or two showing you how it works off-road and some of the really cool tech that it has, which really impressed me. I was not expecting, and I really love it. But anyway, next, the #3 car that I use the most is right here, my new Audi RS2. And I have to say, I'm using it a lot more than I expected. It is nice to have a manual transmission car back that isn't like crazy powerful like the Ford GT. This is the first manual fun car that I've had that won't kill you since I had an Aston Martin like in 2016, like 4 years. I had a Viper after that, but that'll kill you. Anyway, I just enjoy it. I enjoy shifting the gears. I enjoy driving this around. It's practical. I love how it looks. I love even just driving it on like little errands. I just really, really am into driving a manual, reasonable car again. And it's been a lot of fun. And I think part of it is that, the newness of it. Like it's a new cool thing, and it's gonna wear off a little bit, and I probably won't use it quite as much. But so far, this has been just the greatest thing, and I've been absolutely thrilled to use it and to enjoy it as much as I have. And I'm driving it quite a bit, certainly every day right now. Next up, the next car that I use the most is my 1997 Land Rover Defender, my yellow Defender. I bought this car, it's been almost 4 years now, and I love it. It's the coolest thing. And I admit I don't use it as much as I used to. The first couple of years I had it, I drove it about 6,000 miles a year, which is a lot for a car with no roof and that struggles to go 60 miles an hour. And I lived in a climate that had winter, and so you couldn't really use it for like 4 months out of the year. But I'm not using it as much now. There's a couple reasons for that. One is I bought the G-Wagon. And that's just better in a lot of ways. If you want to go on longer trips, the Defender is a disaster to drive any long distance. The G-Wagon can handle anything, it's so smooth. And also the G-Wagon is better at night. San Diego is known for its wonderful climate, but even here at night it gets a little cool, especially in the winter. And the Defender fully open, you're just dressed up like you're in Maine. The G-Wagon, you can put the roof up, you can put the heated seats on, and it's just really, really tempered in there. Now, I will say, I do use the Defender every single day when it's here, but only on shorter trips. To the bank, to run errands, that sort of thing. A lot of people call it a zip code car, a car you kind of drive around but never really leave your zip code, and that's exactly what it is. If I have a short errand and the Defender is one of the cars that's here, I use it every single time, every day. But it's not exactly the car I want to get in and drive 2 hours with. I used to do that. When I lived on the East Coast, I drove the Defender from Philadelphia to Nantucket, to Cape Cod, to ship to Nantucket. And that was a 6-hour one-way drive. And I did that 5 times. And I just, looking back, can't believe that I ever drove it 6 hours at once. It was probably hell. But the point is, love the Defender. I use it as much as I can, but mostly for shorter trips. It doesn't accumulate that many miles every year, but I suspect I end up starting it just as much as basically every other car that I own. And finally, the last kind of fun, exciting car that I have is my 2005 Ford GT, which is my exotic mid-engine supercar. It's been tuned. It has over 700 horsepower. It's insane. And this is certainly the car that I drive the least. I'm probably doing only about 1,000 miles a year in it. And when I bought this, there were many people in fact, who said, well, is this the end of the Ford GT? Are you going to sell the GT? Have another fun manual car? Are you going to get rid of the GT? No, I'm not yet. I love the Ford GT. I think it's a very special car. I bought it because it drives unbelievably well and because I truly think it's the least amount of money you can spend to buy an iconic car. When I think of iconic cars, the Lamborghini Countach, those are $400,000 now. Carrera GT F40, those are $1 million cars now. The Ford GT, I paid $225 for mine, and that's a lot of money, but you can't even get a new McLaren for that right now. And I find the GT to be so much more interesting and exciting and driver involving than a new McLaren. I wouldn't even, I mean, I would get a GT 10 times over before I got one of those. But anyway, the point is, that's why I bought it, and I was just really excited for it. It's been over 2 years since I bought it, and initially I was using it very frequently, and that really kind of took a dive. I mentioned in a recent video I did, I think my G-Wagon video, that I'm not really a supercar guy, and I think it's taken me the Ford GT to realize that. I don't need a car with over 700 horsepower. It's just excessive, and frankly, I'm still intimidated by the Ford GT over 2 years after I bought it. I also don't, it's impractical, and I like weird, practical, fun cars, and it's the attention that it brings. When I bought it, I really didn't expect that. I really thought it would kind of slip under the radar, which, looking back on it, was just insane that I ever thought it. But that's what I thought. I thought, oh, it's a Ford, it's kind of dark colored, maybe you won't notice it. No, you always have someone taking a picture, you always have someone freaking out, and I don't know, I just don't, I like the weird cars to draw the attention, and not like the crazy supercars where people just want to know how much it costs and, you know, you want to trade. I'd rather have someone walk up to me and say, "Hi, you got an Audi Rs2? I haven't seen one of these since my boyhood in Switzerland." That's an interesting conversation. And frankly, I just like using a car to its fullest a little bit more. I love that I can take the Rs2 out, ring it through all the gears, and be a little bit over the speed limit, not crazily so like in the Ford GT. So I still love the car. It is still an icon. It is still tremendously special, and I don't really plan on getting rid of it yet, but I'm certainly using it less than I expected to when I first bought it. Another benefit of having the Ford GT, something that's really important to me, I love to spread out my car countries of origin. I don't like having too many cars from one place. And right now I have 2 German cars, 2 British cars, so 4 European, and then that 1 American car. And I like to have more variety than that. I don't want to be accused of only liking Euro cars or only liking American or only Japanese, because there have been periods where I've had almost all American cars or almost all Japanese cars, and I want to have like a good spread. So when I had my Kia, I had an Asian car, an American car, German, British, it was great. But the Kia's now gone. I sold that on Cars and Bids and replaced it with the new Defender. And so now it's just a little bit more Euro heavy. And so I like the Ford GT because it is an American car. It kind of splits up my interest in the cars that I own a little bit more, which I like. But those are the basics. Those are kind of the cars that I use the most, the ones that I drive, the fun cars, the daily driver, etc. One other car worth noting, I do still own the famous CarMax Range Rover. I actually, this car I keep on Nantucket, where I like to spend a lot of vacation, the summer and in the winter. And so I keep it with a friend there who drives it when I'm not there, which is most of the year. But for the few weeks a year where I am on the East Coast, I drive it there, and it's great. And so I still have that car, but you know, that car was famous in my early days of YouTube, where it would break and CarMax would pay for it. It was a lot of fun. These days, it's just kind of becoming an old Range Rover. But that's still in my life. I drove it recently, and that's that. But that is my current garage. Everything else is gone, sold, away, and I am left, as a result, with just the 5 cars here in San Diego, plus I guess half a car in that Range Rover. And I think I'm gonna stop there. I think that's kind of it. Those are famous last words, probably, but I have a daily driver that I plan to use for a long time. That new Defender, I truly do not plan to get rid of it for ages. And the rest of the stable, these are the cars that I really, really like and I really want to have. And so it's nice to have them. And I don't see a reason to get another car for at least a while. We'll just leave it for a while. Maybe a couple years, maybe late, I don't know, we'll see. But for right now, super happy. And those are the cars. And that's my garage tour, plus faraway garage that I'm renting now tour.